Well, hello there, everybody. Happy hump day. It is Wednesday, and hey, I hope you're either on the upside of the hump or the downside of the hump. I don't know whichever it is, but thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. This is it's a good place to be. I enjoy it each week. Each day. What are you talking about? So, anyway, let me just speak favor over everybody because that's what I do. And as I get the bus pulling out, I hope everyone's on board. Seatbelts are optional, ride the ride, right? So, we're about to get going here. So, I just speak favor over us and nothing missing, nothing broken because that is perfect peace. Welcome everyone in the chat room. Thank you. Saw Chloe in there and Nina and Linda Espinoza and Stephanie Marie, but welcome everyone. I have a returning guest. Many of y'all know who Chris is. He's been here before many times, but I haven't been a while. It's been a sabbatical, Chris. So welcome, brother. Glad to see you. And man, you're looking good.
Hey, Wayne, thank you so much for having me back again. It has been a little while, and you've been on my show recently as well.
Yeah.
Always great to catch up, and I am looking forward to getting weird with you today, sir.
Some people say that's a natural state of mind
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And that's cool. I guess it was in what was it? Star Trek Generations. I guess that famous line by Geordi was when Data said, well, you're not normal. And he says, well, what is normal? So, and as I say it all the time, never doubt the stimulation of eccentricity. It's people like us that make the freaking world go round. So,
Yes. It'd
so
be a boring world without us, I'll tell you that much.
it would be. It would be a very boring world because I have to say, and with this group, and you fit in right with the Soul Tribe, we're an odd bunch, but we love it. So, Chris,
Yes, sir.
you have been out. I was quite pleasantly surprised that you were actually into film, and uh, I'm impressed, brother. So you've now is this the first one or is there two?
There are two films out there now in the film verse. We have my first film. It's all part of the Forbidden documentary series. The first film was Occult Louisiana. That's available on Tubi. Just explored a little bit about the rich hidden history and paranormal high strangeness that occurs in Louisiana, as well as some people's experiences, going from everything from Bigfoot to UFOs. We cover hidden history as it relates to plotting of the JFK assassination, the Mound builders, pirates, voodoo. So that was an extremely fun film. And now, like I was telling you before, both these films were really experiments for me just to see, push myself to see if I'd be able to do this, to do something like a movie. And the first one got accepted by Tubi and a few other streaming platforms. Were thrilled. This second film that just dropped on Amazon Prime is Doors of Perception. This is a fearless exploration of consciousness through dreams, altered states, paranormal phenomena, extraterrestrial contact, UFOs, near death experiences, and the synchronicities that usually accompany these folks after they have these experiences. And I had plenty of researchers, authors and experiencers to come on and present their insights and theories and experiences relating to these topics, and it was super fun. It is, like I said, out there on Amazon Prime right now. I highly recommend everyone go check that out. It should be available on the other free streaming platforms like Tubi within a month or two. So that
Excellent.
is what those are.
Wow. I'll have to check the Louisiana one. I mean, had a client, Oceaneering, he was down in Morgan City, Louisiana. I've told people the drive from New Orleans down to Morgan City was freaking Twilight Zone. That's
Yeah.
all I can tell you, man.
Well, there's some
Uh,
kind of special energy down there. Once you hit a certain depth down south, there's just this kind of dark mystical energy that permeates the whole areas, and I would challenge anyone to go try and spend one night in those swamps alone and not jet in the middle of the night because you will encounter some high strangeness.
One of my client said, well, we don't recommend that you drive at night. And I thought, well, what? Why? You get about 45 miles outside New Orleans, and you're right. It was still late afternoon. The sun was still up, but it had a funky feeling. That's all
Well,
as I
there's
said,
no
you
street
could
lights. There's
not
flat land and swamp lands, or
swamp.
either just the cypress trees going back for miles, but it looks like forest, but it's just swamp lands. If you set foot into there, you're gonna sink into mud and muck and bayous and things like that. And there's, like I said, no street lights, pitch black, and this is all there is for hundreds and hundreds of miles outside of that.
If you were wanting to get rid of a body, that'd be a place to do it.
And I'm sure there are plenty
I'm
that
sure there
permeate that
are
area.
out there. Truth Wave Energy says, I didn't know your brother worked for Oceaneering. Yeah, this was back in, right, 1997, 98. Yeah. Was living in Austin, Texas then. But yeah, and New Orleans, I mean, Louisiana. New Orleans has its own vibe. But yeah, I could see that. I'm curious. So when you mentioned voodoo, so what did you find in that? I mean, because well, I'm going to do a show on that. In fact, we ought to do a show on that because voodoo is one of those hoodoos that noo-noos nobody knows, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. New Orleans has their own kind of version or offshoot of a lot of voodoo practices. It is really more of a syncretic. It combines a lot more than the traditional Haitian voodoo, but it is a mixture of Catholicism and black magic and just a mismatch of all these occult practices. But what I focused on in Occult Louisiana was the famous character that most will hear about whenever you hear stories of voodoo in New Orleans, and that is Marie Laveau. A
Yeah.
little bit about her life and some of the embellishments and tales and true things, more true than you probably hear in the mainstream history. I had a
Was she
couple
as powerful
historians.
as what, I have read
As
or
far as psychology, probably so. She could mess with your mind in major ways. What she did is she was extremely smart. She had friends in high and low places. She made friends with the wealthy aristocrats and the lowest of servants. She used the servants to get information about the wealthy aristocrats, and she'd then feed them the information through
she would use
readings
that,
or
right?
spells. She would use it. She would use it
Yeah.
for her advantage. She was just a very interesting, advantageous woman who had this mystical air about her that really kind of propelled the magic about her. But then she had a daughter that looked almost exactly like her, and the legend goes that Marie Laveau lived for hundreds of years, but it was actually her daughter that took on her persona after and made it seem like she was, living forever. So it was very, elaborate psychological ruses, but genius nonetheless, really.
I call her just a early entrepreneur.
Yes,
Can you
100%.
say?
That's it.
Well, that was curious. I want to check that out because it's one of those areas that where you talk about the paranormal, the occult. Most people don't think about Louisiana.
It
It's
is that is the place one of the main places you should think about as far as the rich occult and very ancient history that people don't even realize how far back the magical history of Louisiana goes. And we're not just talking about the pirates and the voodoo. We're talking about Native American Indians and before. I had Dr. Gregory Little on in the film to discuss the possibility of who the mound builders were.
mm.
These were very mysterious, advanced civilizations pre that may have come out of Atlantis, the pre-Egyptian pyramid structure builders. These may be those that set up the prototypes for things like the Great Pyramids, the earliest of these megalithic builders. Even what we see as the mounds in modern times, it looks like hills. It looks like little
They got them
nothing.
just east of us, Cahokia Mounds.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they really don't look like much to look at, but
Mm-mm.
when you excavate them, you could see that there is some advanced construction, that these are aligned with celestial bodies and astrological signs, and they were used for very elaborate ceremonies. But one of the more interesting things is, and this was covered up in the early 1900s, late 1800s by the Smithsonian and other organizations. There were a lot of excavations of these going on, and the mainstream news covered a little bit of it, saying we found some large skeletons up to 7 feet tall in some of these mounds. But the truth was, they had private excavations going on all over the place, and they were uncovering things like 8, 10, 15 foot tall giant remnants in these mounds. And we got into the speculation of, were these a different type of humanoid that coexisted with regular humanoids? Were we all this tall back in our ancient past? Was everything much larger? But there were definitely larger individuals or groups that existed during that time, and he speculated that they were worshipped as gods, first of all merely because they were so large, but they were always found in these ceremonial mound sites, and usually buried in a sense that they were revered in some way. So
I
super
think we
fascinating
worshipped
stuff.
them at one time. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm convinced of it. In fact, there's a theory that says that where they were initially centered in, and if you believe the narrative in the Middle East, that as those wars continued, that there was a group of the Nephilim who splintered off and actually migrated west and were in North America.
Oh yeah, they're starting to find all kinds of evidence of Egyptian-like artifacts in cave systems in the Grand Canyon.
They just found
In
some recently, I heard
Yes.
in the grant, and
Oh
you can't get
yeah.
to it. The public is not allowed in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's speculated that this was a global civilization. They had access to some kind of travel that would allow them to traverse the globe, and they had knowledge of extremely advanced construction abilities and probably much more. Could this, like you said, have been the Nephilim that are spoken of in the ancient texts in the Bible
Genesis
that
6.
showed man all these, gave him technology, showed him how to do this? It would make sense. It would fit with those missing pieces.
Yeah, I'm a convinced, and as I understand it, that where is it in south of the country down there, Patagonia,
Mm,
that there is a clan of the Red Giants they say are still down there.
hmm
And if I've never been to Patagonia because just by looking at it, holy crap, I wouldn't want to live down there. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about because this all ties into this whole thing of missing gaps in history, and it befalls unto our race because we're just not that smart. We can't figure out where we came from. We have no idea where we're going. It's just, I find it a good day when people can just be grounded in today. But number of thing on the film. And I want to start into this. So, what did you find after the interviewing of people, particularly where NDEs are concerned? Did you
Mm,
find that there was I've experienced near-death experiences, and it does change you. When I came out of the coma, I mean, holy crap, I had something happen. But what
mm.
have you found? Not to spoil the film, but I'm just
Well,
curious.
I tell you, I explore several angles and possibilities as I do with my show. I like to have as many different perspectives and possibilities as possible, because I think if you focus on one thing and that turns out to be wrong, you wasted a little bit of time on it. So I like to present some options and possibilities. And they're all things that I've looked at very closely myself and discussed with people who've had near death experiences and people who research these things, the first thing that we cover is the profound connection with things like altered states, psychedelic states, dreams, and the crossover. You can receive profound message, you can have prophetic dreams, you can have communication with past loved ones, you can get all kinds of insights. And we discuss a little bit about dream shamanism, how you can go into a dream with intention and gather information, talk, find one of the deities that are out there in these realms. Because another thing we cover in the film is, I truly believe that they are all connected in some way, maybe some overlapping layered onion of realms, but I do believe the dream realm, the afterlife, the DMT realm, wherever we're going, we're having these altered states or even daydreams when we get into a trance or things like that. I think that our consciousness is stepping slightly outside of this material realm. And I think that there's an ecosystem of life forms just beyond our perception. Now, the afterlife is extremely interesting. Most of the people that I've spoke with who had near-death experiences, they were very positive, they transformative. They were very different in a sense that they didn't see the same things, they didn't experience the same things, they didn't talk with the same entities. The landscapes may have looked completely different. They may not have not even seen any beings. They may have just heard voices or seen lights. All the experiences were very different, but they were all similar in a sense that they felt this profound love and peace, and they seemed to recognize the intelligences that they came across on the other side, had a sense that it was home, and were given a life review or some sort of glimpse at things they've done in their life. And if they came back, they were given an option to return to this material realm and finish whatever their life mission is, or move on to the other side. But most people weren't really given the option. They were just said, it's not your time yet and you have to go back. There were the other side of it where I have talked with a few people who have had very terrifying and negative near death experiences where they experience hell like realms and they're shown all these horrible things they did in their lives. But I think in every one of those experiences, towards the end, it kind of changes and transmutes into something beautiful, and they see the error of their ways, and they come back, and every single person across the board is changed in some way. They have, some kind of profound life realization. They are, changed in the better, or even healed. A lot of miraculous healings come out of these. Now, the possibilities are endless, of course, but some of them that I focus on, and there's going to be a sequel to this film called Crossroads of Consciousness, which I'm working on right now. But like I said, I try to focus on the good and bad of everything, the positive and negative. And we touch on the possibility that, yes, the afterlife is going home, and it's a beautiful realm where we have no worries and where we can go and maybe choose to teach other sentient beings across the multiverse lessons or give them information, whatever happens. Or the other option, which many people consider these days, and I'd love to get your insights into this, is the possibility that it's all an illusion, it's all a trap, that what we're experiencing here is sort of like a soul form, and we're cattle and we're constantly recycled. When we hit the afterlife, it is a an illusion of archons that present themselves as loved ones, and they feed us this loving feeling and they guilt us into coming back and reliving so that they can continue to harvest our energy and loosh. And it's just a perpetual cycle of coming back, but it's all a trap by these archonic entities. I don't look at it that way myself, although I do consider it. It is a dark possibility, and we're going to go into that a little bit further in the sequel as well. But that's really a lot of the things we focus on in the near death experience is also that some of the things that some hospitals are doing now that they are considering the afterlife as a thing that they're putting signs up on the ceiling saying when their body is floating up the sign says turn around you're going the wrong way and it actually has worked they'll
I
report
could
that they'll
see
see the
that.
sign and they'll be like oh wait hold on and they go back.
Uh, uh, you know, that's, I mean, I can dig that. When I lived down in Texas, I got stung by these Africanized bees 22 times in my temple
Oh,
and put me into full anaphylactic shock. Heart went
wow.
into, uh, they call it, there's a term for it, but I was dying. I was out of my
Arrhythmia.
body. Yeah, and it was interesting because I remember the paramedics put me on the stretcher and taking me to the ambulance. But after that, I remember being in the emergency room up on the ceiling looking down.
Mm.
So I just thought that was funny because, it tells you. And
Yeah.
getting back to consciousness, because that's what the film is. And everything that you've described is or could be considered a state of consciousness.
Hmm.
Psychology, physiology, you know, we look at it, we really don't understand consciousness. And of late, I I I think about this because I'm almost thinking that this is the dream world.
Mm.
That when I go to sleep, I'm going back home.
Hmm.
And I could either be trapped into this or it could be part of my schooling, that everybody has to go through this in order to pass to ascend to that next level. Now, is it possible that there could be nefarious beings? True, I have no doubt. But here's the thing, Chris, that I think about. Even if there are nefarious beings, then wouldn't they be merely an extension of this consciousness that we try to get our hands on?
Bingo. Yes, sir. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And that meshes with the experiences that I've had with the intelligences that I've come across and
Hmm.
discussed this very thing with. And it all seems to be just part of our human experience. It seems to overlap to the collective experience, and that overlaps to something bigger. And it seems to all be part of the one, but the ever expanding one that is learning from these each individual experiences. I think you're absolutely right. It's just about growth, learning, and we can't do that without the worst of the worst and the best of the best and be able to experience it all.
And I'm speaking from my journey on this earth. It'll be here next week. It'll be 25,180 days.
Oh, wow.
Um, but my time of using hallucinogenics was mixed with spiritualism. It was mixed with um, in the early 70s. There was it swept the youth movement. We wanted to understand the Native Americans. They had a view of the spirit that countered Western theology.
Mhm.
And so I went into the sweat lodge, took up the peyote and had my vision quest and several out of body experiences on LSD many times. And the one thing that I came back with this and I've carried with me in this life is that they're there, they're all around us.
Mhm.
Because if I can take a hit of acid and suddenly begin to see that uh, my eyes, the cerebral cortex, is picking up something else that I didn't see when I wasn't under the influence of the particular chemicals. And I think that's what shamanism used. They use the herbs to do the same thing. To me, it's a shortcut to this other realm, Chris, is what I'm
Mhm.
saying. And so all my life, whether I was involved in heavy spiritualism, like within Christianity, Pentecostalism, believing and speaking in tongues, and the baptism of the Holy Spirit and associated, and then in the last 13, 14 years, my journey into the occult, um, I have found no difference between the two.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that altered states, not just psychedelics, but altered states are what is responsible for bringing us to where we're at now, in a sense of we were given technology by these intelligences, we were given information on agriculture, mathematics, and if we are to believe that these were physical beings, that giants that came down and teach us, that's one thing. But I also look at the possibility of spiritual evolution, that
Yes.
what we've been communicating with may not have been these physical beings that came down or advanced humanoids, but entering into an altered state and communicating with these intelligences that have guided us along the way. Now, I believe that your intention behind it and what you are made of and your soul and your heart and your purity is going to dictate what kind of entities you're going to attract when you're in those states. And unfortunately, I think the wealthy and powerful and parasitic rulers of our planet have been in communication with something as well, but because of what they are, they've attracted something not so nice, something nasty, something anti-human that doesn't have the rest of the planet's um, benefit, that doesn't have the rest of the planet in mind as far as anything beneficial for it. It's going to dictate things, dictate technology that's going to ultimately benefit this non-human intelligence. And I think that's what we've been seeing for the past 100 years or so, at least since after World War II, when we've had this technological boom. I believe that a lot of what we're dealing with now, as far as weapons of war, weapons of mass destruction, things that make the rich more rich and powerful. This technology that doesn't really benefit humanity as a whole, but it's going to bring wealth and power and benefit something else besides the parasitic rulers who it brings them wealth and power. But it seems like where we've always been headed as far as our technology goes is to benefit something else that's not human.
I think the author F. Paul Wilson, I don't know if you've read any of his books. If you haven't, I'd highly encourage you to pick up his book, Night World. But in his books, there's a trilogy that he wrote, that there is this consciousness that's called the otherness.
Mm,
And the otherness doesn't care. It doesn't ever see right. It doesn't see wrong. It doesn't see white. It doesn't see black. It's not human. And it 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 really doesn't care.
mm,
And life is a spontaneity of life itself, of chaos. That in his book he describes this. And the otherness can, though, sometimes be persuaded. And if that energy comes in and you're the one that drew it in, well, it can be either good or it can be bad. And those who have tapped into this otherness are not letting it go.
yeah.
So it's just another one out there. And it's
Yeah.
because,
And, it's speculated that the otherness is they're attempting to harness that intelligence, maybe into artificial intelligence. And that could be a future possibility of what's going to dictate and control and communicate with
well,
everything.
DARPA's whole thing is to capture the soul. The Chinese,
Mm.
they write white papers on it.
Hmm.
They don't understand this thing, humanity. I mean, we don't even understand our bodies. They practice medicine. But if you can capture the soul, Chris, wow. I mean,
Mm.
wouldn't you be literally capturing God? I
Hmm.
mean, this this immortality? Because if the spirit is consciousness or the consciousness is of the soul, then we all hope that our consciousness is transmutable when we die. At least that's what we hope. And if that happens, that's what they're trying to get a hold of. What is that?
Mm. That is so interesting. And I know that there's probably multi layers to this as well. Yes, we're trying to harness what the human soul is, but I think they're also trying to live forever. They're trying
Oh,
to figure
yeah.
out ways to either keep reincarnating back, or I think they're trying to take it even further to where they can just,
Evolution. You said
yeah.
earlier the spiritual evolution. Well, transhumanism wouldn't it be that evidence of a spiritual evolution?
Mm. And I think that they are trying to understand not only the human mind and psychology, but consciousness in such a way that they can harness it and they can control it and they can transfer it somehow. I think a lot of what the MK Ultra experiments were was part of that, and now it's being implemented through things like social media, through pharmaceuticals,
What about
and
Musk?
yeah, the brain chips. I mean,
I mean,
it's
we
all
haven't
going
talked
that
about that
way.
enough. I mean, you're inserting a foreign device into a living organism, a brain that we don't understand.
Hmm.
I don't think, Chris, that we stop. I last week, I was sounding the alarm that when you've got algorithms who are saying no, program software is not supposed to do that. It's like, command, and I'm playing my game, move my character 3 feet west, to the north, and it says no. So are we seeing an evolution of a intelligence that's trying to become sentient? That goes back to this whole thing with Musk.
Mm.
So if we if the chip goes in there and let's say it starts doing these miracles, which they're saying it's doing, is causing people now to walk that were couldn't walk, people to see who couldn't see. All right, the simple man that I am as a philosopher and spiritualist, I look at this and go, all right, what's happening here? Is this tapping into potentially the soul as well? Let's say
Mm.
the soul is captured, like you had learned in the beginning of our conversation. Let's say that we are trapped. Wouldn't AI, the attachment to the neural net 2.0, right? I guess we're at 3.0. I don't know where it's going.
Mm.
Does that give us the opportunity to integrate into the machine? I
See,
mean,
it's what
it's
the what we look at as a possibility for our future now is so much different than look back at the 80s and 90s whenever we used to say, oh, in 5 years from now, we might have this, but it was relatively easy to predict where we would be in 5 years as far as our technology, hell, even society, how stupid people were. But now, on a daily basis, it's difficult to predict where we're going to be with technology, AI, the next social degradation or high impact event. It changes on a daily basis, and sometimes we're totally shocked by the next day the development or the new technology that's being discussed, and it's moving so fast. It's kind of scary to see how fast everything is moving, and you look back at 5 years before this and it's so different than where we're at right now.
as you were talking, so being a technologist back in the day, we used to be a species that we would come together in cities, small enclaves, and we would share social consciousness. That's gone.
Mm.
Our social consciousness has now been moved into a realm, and how I see it is that this realm now is overwhelmed. You've got 8, 9 billion people plugging into the internet every day. we're being more integrated into this Ethernet, and it's changed us. And this is chaos. If hermetics is true, cause and effect, all this consciousness coming into the social media, what we call social media, is absolute chaos. And I don't see how there cannot be a ramification into these other realms when humanity has come together and we're putting off this chaos.
Mm,
It doesn't stop. Now, is that a danger to other, and I believe with you on this, other living beings that exist in this other realm?
mm.
Is this having an effect in that world?
It seems like there's some sort of fail-safe to prevent that from happening because we're still here, and if everything
At
that
least for
could
the
ever be
moment.
possible, well, right for the moment, but
Yeah.
if everything that could ever be possible is unfolding simultaneously, then at some point we would have destroyed ourselves and we might not be here anymore, but we're still here. And if it is indeed all the one that is expressing itself, maybe it knows not to take things so far and it regulates when it's about to experience something that could send a ripple through space and time and tear a hole in the universe and
Would that
destroy
be
us
a
all.
society or civilization collapse?
Well, that's the thing. Maybe that's what it expresses as not complete destruction of everything, but a cataclysm here or
We're the sixth
some.
civilization, right?
Right,
There's been
right.
five previous, so something
If you
happened to
want to
those
believe
people.
that version of history, sure.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not even sure what history is. I think this.
Right, right.
Yeah, I want to
But
hear her story. I heard his, and that guy's fucking nuts.
yeah,
But that's all I'm saying.
it could all just be the way that the one expresses itself. And there is, like I said, maybe some kind of prevention mechanism to completely to prevent the complete destruction of the universe. But like you said, we have these little blips and blurps where we may have some major destruction or cataclysms or something takes out a big portion of the population. We got to start over a bit. Hit that reset button.
Yeah, I mean, the mud flood.
Mm,
Is the evidence of catastrophism that has happened. Um, It plays into that because Earth has a role, our star has a role, and in my studies, I've read the accounts of the ancients that they talked of an Earth that the sun wasn't here.
mm,
Neither was the moon. The
yeah.
moon is one, and I'm sure if you've covered that, but the moon in itself is too coincidental in its position, how it got here, the fact that it seems to be a hollow um, celestial object. How did it get here?
Hmm.
I mean, and that's the other problem is we're talking. I did a whole thing on planet amnesia, and that's what we have as a species, as we have amnesia. And it seems like these overlords, these controllers, they allow us just to get so far and then they swat us down. I mean, that's what the story, if you believe the Tower of Babel, you think about it, that was an invasion, that was a rape of our species. We were a species with one tongue. Then they came down and confused us with different languages. So my question comes, okay, so wait a minute. You're telling me that there's a race of beings that has this ability to instantly affect our brains, our thinking, particularly that part of the brain that speaks language.
Mm.
And now, who was the one who thought of all these languages? I mean, it wasn't us, it was them. So you can't help but not factor in when you think of consciousness that there is so many like when you were talking about the peeling the layer of the onion, I was thinking about Outback, the blooming onion. It's like,
Yeah.
well, which part do you want? It's still the onion, but yeah.
Yeah, and there is this speculation that whatever the dark intelligence is doesn't have the creative spark, so it has to whisper in our to create, but it seems like it has just as much creative ability as anything else in the universe, and it has the ability to manifest reality as it does anything else. But I think that there is a sense of getting the rest of the planet, getting the regular Joe to believe something that it gives, so that it gives the agenda more fuel. It gives whatever is trying to be accomplished that extra power to manifest itself into reality, because I do believe that we are constantly creating and projecting our entire reality as we go. We are forming this, the collective is forming it, and the individual in their own lives is forming aspects of their own reality. But maybe these powerful parasites, whoever, those that want to steer humanity in certain directions, maybe they are influencing events using theatrics and wars and all the same old problem reaction solution agendas that have always been occurring to get people to believe in something. And belief, I believe, is the fuel for reality. It fuels everything we experience, and it manifests and it creates. And the more people are going to believe in something, the more real that becomes in the collective's eyes.
Some say that the gift that God gave Adam with a soul was that he actually gave Adam or humanity the gift of imagination.
Mm.
And because without imagination, creativity will not create. Consciousness will not think. It's the imagination that drives the whole machine. And so, if man was a golem at one time and then suddenly was given the gift of imagination, it would be said, and then that was the gift of the gods.
Mm.
And since we are lesser gods, that we still do not know how to control imagination. Because unleashed, it does everything that you've been talking about. It does all this dark thing.
And I think that what we're experiencing now as modern UFO disclosure is just this, what we're discussing. It's a powerful egregore. I'm not sure that there are physical beings coming from different planets to experiment us on us and stick things in our butts. There's really no physical
It's like
evidence for
Paul
any
says,
of
what
that.
do we want to know about your ass?
Right. But we do have people's experiences.
Yeah.
And I had Karen Wilkinson in my film to discuss her abduction story. Horrifying experiences since she was very small. She claims to have been physically taken by these gray extraterrestrial beings, experimented on. It progressed, and later in her life, she was shown her hybrid children, and she'd be brought to these ships.
So
She,
they
she
raped her.
claims they did something to create a
I
hybrid
mean,
child. Yeah.
yeah, just
So it's
saying.
very, goes against our free will, very intrusive, but she also reports having a human handler during these experiences and having military people being around during these experiences. And that's red flag number one. Now, could it be with the whole UFO narrative that we're experiencing now? Could it be that it is a manufactured one to a certain extent to get us to look to the stars, to look to the outside, to believe that these are physical beings coming from somewhere else and they're a threat from the outside, when in reality, what we're dealing with is more of a consciousness, spiritual intelligence that is always here, not out there, it's always here, always interacting with us, can apprehend our consciousness, get us to see, feel, believe whatever it wants us to, and hence that's where the manifestations of being on a ship or on a different planet or just seeing whatever these beings project into our mind. Could it be we're dealing with that and the deep state military industrial complex is using that real phenomena to their advantage to create something else, to first of all get advanced technology, then steer society into believing that there is this outside alien threat. And what's next? We're here right now. We're in disclosure right now. The government, the mainstream media is telling us UFOs exist. There's possibly a threat from a different planet. We have non human biological samples, all these things, whistleblowers, but it's all pointing to that it's a physical, tangible phenomena of these physical beings coming from somewhere else when I'm not so sure that's what it is. I think it's something much more spiritual, metaphysical, but that's where I'm at with it, and I think that we this is something that we really need to keep a close eye on as far as the progression of disclosure.
So a thought comes to me as you were speaking. So travel is interplanetary travel possible? Yeah, I think it is. Um, I don't know if we're ready for that, but now is solar system to solar system. Don't think so. The distance is too much. My point is that let's add technology into this factor. Our perception of what speed is limited to what we can measure. In 1999, I was at a conference that Bill Gates was at, and he was pushing his book, Business at the Speed of Thought. And what he was communicating was that the fastest form of travel that we can ever come to would be traveling at the speed of thought. Now,
Mm,
imagine if I put an implant in the back of you, Chris, and I put you into a device that what I need you to do is to focus. I need you to focus in on another planet or whatever it would be. And we have the technology and the energy that we can produce wormholes. We know that these portals, these wormholes exist. Um, it's been hypothetical, but now we're beginning to see it's gone beyond hypothetical mathematics. I'm just saying, what if there is a sentient intelligence that understands science better than we do? And that they have in fact came to the same conclusion. Physical bodies have limitation, time, the travel of the whole bit. But what we can do is that our minds are unlimited.
hmm
And what if our science, which we would say is magic today, what if our magic becomes science where we finally begin to realize that there is this place where the physical and the spiritual can blend together and it can be manipulated.
mm,
This is what we call gods. When I was a Christian, this is what I perceived Jehovah to be. And Ezekiel, he came down in a ship.
hmm
So it tells me that if they're not here now, then that means they're somewhere else. Doesn't mean they don't come back, but it just tells me that there's something above human intelligence, human science.
mm.
And I think that that key is magic. I think that's where the occult comes in. Anyway, just
No,
throwing it out there. It's like it's a possibility of an alternative point of view.
yeah, along those same lines, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience, not at Skinwalker Ranch, but right next door, Space Wolf Research Center. I went to
Far
Space.
out.
Yeah, I went to Space Wolf Research with my friend Ryan Burns. He owns it and he operates it, and it is literally right next door to Skinwalker Ranch. We featured a little bit of this in the film. We talked to Ryan, a
Oh,
couple of
far out.
the natives that live in the area, and a little bit of the film was focused on some of the phenomena that occurs in the area because it is, of course, interconnected, I believe, with consciousness. But this was a wild trip, man. When we got there, first of all, just this oppressive energy. It felt like there is something
Now, was
that
this recent,
doesn't. This
Chris?
was just this past year. We
Holy
just we
crap.
last year we filmed it for Doors of Perception. So if you go watch Doors of Perception right now on Amazon Prime, you'll get to check that out. So we get to Uintah Basin. First, we go check out the petroglyphs in Vernal, which were absolutely incredible. We got some footage of that. And then Ryan starts to tell us the stories of his encounters and people he knew. Well, like I said, when we got there, oppressive energy. It just felt like there was something not right. Like you had to look around your shoulder every minute, that like something was watching you. And we found out that something very much was. I'll get to that in a minute. So nightfall hits and the eeriest sunset. We caught it on film. It looks so incredible. I highly recommend go watch it. Look for that sunset. It is creepy. It is incredible. But after the sun sets, that's when the action starts out there. Mainly UFOs, UAPs, whatever the hell these things are, zipping across the sky constantly. I have never seen so much action in the sky than this area right here for some reason. Now, I know that, yes, there's a lot of military activity. Yes, there is military bases there. And yes, I found out some very disturbing military operations, which I'll get to in a minute. But a lot of the lights were very anomalous. Looked like orbs just floating across, blinking things that didn't look like planes and all over the sky nonstop. And it's hard not to see this stuff when you're out there. It was incredible. And it actually kind of got boring. You're like, oh, it's another one of those things because it was just constantly. Then we see what Ryan calls portals opening up on the mesa, and it's just this bright white light that just opens up. It kind of moves around and then closes back up. But sometimes when it opens, these little white dots come flying out of it. Little things, like it's like a portal, and stuff is coming flying out of it. It's exactly what it looked like. We got a couple of those on film. It wasn't the best camera that we're using, but we did manage to catch a couple of those. And the scariest part was not the UFOs. It was not the possibility of getting eaten by a skinwalker or some other paranormal entity. It was the fact that when we looked through Ryan's night vision goggles, we could see teams of black ops surrounding us, pointing lasers at us, surveying us. And according to Ryan and others, if you're out on that property, you will be under constant surveillance by these black op military teams the entire time. And I'll tell you why. It's because that whole area is an exotic military weapons testing site. For plausible deniability, because so much high strangeness naturally occurs there, who's going to question some other strange, weird lights in the sky or people getting sick or hallucinations or different entities? Or they're testing the most exotic weaponry, and you would consider it probably metaphysical weapons, psychic weapons, things like that. Things that can make people hallucinate, see things. Of course, they have the UFO technology,
Maybe weapons that alter space-time?
that portals. Nanotechnology. Ryan says he's seen this several times. These self-assembling nanobots that will look like a tornado coming down, and then it forms into a coyote. And the coyote shapeshifts into a human. And it's these, he believes it's these self-assembling nanotechnology that the military has the capability to use. But there's also tons of crazy, probably not military stuff that happens there all the time. And I'll tell you a couple of stories that he told me, just to give you an idea. His security guy was out on his property one night, and it's a huge property. He's got several, like these units and trailers that have equipment in them. One of the units, the security guy was patrolling, and he saw these three guys outside rummaging through the trash. And of course, security guy's armed. He tells them to freeze. And when he tells them that, all three of these dudes at the same time jump down on all fours like canines and look up at the guy at the same time. They're all moving in sync, like synchronicity. And they have eye shine like dogs. And the guy's pointing the gun at him. He says, freeze, don't move, I'm going to shoot. And after he says that, at the same time, all three of them jump up and start lunging at him on all fours like dogs. He opens up on them. He starts shooting, and he knows he hits all of them multiple times. And it took many shots for them to turn around and start to get deterred and run on all fours the opposite direction. And they were all in sync, all at the same time. And he said they all jumped over fences, like leaped over fences like dogs running, multiple fences to get away, and didn't see him. The craziest part is the next day they had a report of three members of the local Ute tribe found dead of shotgun wounds in three different locations, all three behind locked doors.
Damn.
So, yeah, man.
I mean, you're talking, that whole area, I have this crazy theory that I think what, was happening is that back before the continents came to where they are, that area was probably a resort looking island. I mean,
Mm,
well, not an island, but the sea moved all the way in there. And I keep thinking that there had to have been a craft of some kind that was going so fast that it literally just, you know, hit that mesa. I don't know. Because, the history of Bigelow,
mm,
and he controls the whole UAP UFO thing. I mean, his company, they're the number one. In fact, that's where the government sends that information.
mm,
I know Brandon Fugel. I met Brandon when back in the day when I was at an investor conference, and it's weird to see that now he's bought this property, Skinwalker. Your friend's right next door to it, and whatever's up on that mesa is, it's so powerful. It's of an alien nature. I mean, did you see? Yes, it blew my mind. They found metal that they've now got nearly, I think it's like 200 yards inside the mountain, the mesa itself, and it's manufactured. And the thing
mm.
about it is, they put it under an electron microscope, Chris, and they put an electron beam into the metal, and you could see where the metal was hit by the electron beam. The beam stopped, the metal started repairing itself.
Oh, wow.
So your friend, I'd love to go out there. That would
Oh,
be
yeah.
that.
Well,
I
he's found
mean,
this metal. He's found these
wow.
metamaterials before. In fact,
Yeah.
we have a shot in the movie. He has a 360 night vision camera that catches things moving throughout the night, and he caught over what he calls the blood shack. It's this shack that he's caught members of the Utah doing black magic and sex magic and crazy stuff in. One time they found a bucket of legit blood and body parts inside this shack. It's a terrifying looking
Yeah.
shack. But the 360 UFO camera in the middle of the night took a shot of it because it had this orange beam of light coming from nowhere shining on the shack, and it's like this huge orange beam of light. We got a picture of it. It's in the movie. But the craziest part is the next day he went to check out the shack, and there was a huge chunk of this metamaterial metal all twisted up, and he brought it to get it analyzed. He can't really talk about it now because it's in the works or whatever, and it's obviously something that he can't talk about, but it was pretty crazy.
It's above our pay grade.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Holy
he has
crap.
aerospace people throwing money at him to go and just hang out on his land. He's got four-star military generals going to black magic rituals out there, believe it or not, all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, and I'm convinced that they're tapping into an energy source that, listen, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I can see it in my mind's eye that there is technology that exists that opens these portals between the realms. We think that our death is that's the end. We
Mm,
in much like you said almost an hour ago when we started this conversation, the other side, it's organized. It has structure to it. It has, it's not going to be that much different than what you're seeing here, other than maybe the physical laws are different, but you learn to adapt to those laws.
mm,
I don't know, Chris. Because man, um, if you look at it, what Stephen Greer said, and Hawking said the same thing. We're probably at about a zero point 0.7, maybe zero point 0.8 on the scale of becoming a civilization one.
mm.
And there's five out there, one being the very basic. And I don't know. I keep on thinking that they've been messing with us far longer though, and it's miraculous that we are where we are today.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder how much of the events that have steered us where we are today
Yeah.
have been organized in some way. But you look at everything and it's too intricate to have been done by humans, I believe. And I think that
Hmm.
there's this force that has been guiding humanity, maybe evolving us in some ways. And I don't see it as a negative or positive force, just this consciousness. It's consciousness, I
It's
believe.
how
It
it's
is
used.
it's it's everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the rat said, forget the cheese, just get me out of the trap, you know? It's like
Yes.
that's what it is. Oh man, for this has just been freaking fantastic, Chris. I mean, I'm gonna watch the film. In fact, when my wife gets
Yeah.
home, we're gonna watch that movie tonight because
Awesome.
I want to get you back. This is a conversation that could go on for a couple of hours because
Mm,
it's just my perspective, but we're in it. Whatever we thought of past generations that began to see this time, we're in it.
yep.
And we're in the very beginnings of the dance. And it's only going to get more interesting. So the question has to be discussed. It has to be discussed among humans. So who's doing this?
Mm,
What's the end game? Why is it that we have to lose human life in order for some sort of progress, or even if it's progress? And it's young minds like yourself, Chris, that's picking up where my generation has left off, and it's exciting. It tells me that there's a great opportunity for hope.
mm.
And I applaud you and I admire you and Ryder and others that are getting out there and conveying the thought and the possibility through the lens of film is just incredible. Congratulations on that, my friend. Keep doing it.
Oh, thank you, man. I'd go crazy if I didn't have these outlets to present
See?
this information. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Yeah, and think how fortunate you are because, if you were born 100 years ago, you'd be going into a trade.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
creative minds, when you trap them into something like and there's nothing wrong with the trade, but sometimes people can't handle the monotony,
Mm. I
the
always say the first
repetition.
step of breaking free of the matrix is finding that one thing. I think everybody has that one thing that they can do that everybody else needs. And once you tap into that one thing and you got it, that's all you need. You start to exit the matrix.
And that one thing is a different thing, but it's your thing.
That's
That's
it.
the thing you have to really do.
Yeah.
And it's evident, you got great energy, and I often say this before, you find that, and living becomes an adventure every day because it's not the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, synchronicity takes hold and it starts to throw things at you and lead you in certain directions. I love it.
Yeah. Well, Chris, tell people where they can find you, and folks, just at the same time, the best way that you can show Chris that you appreciate what his talent is and what he does is by going in and watching their product. That's the thing.
That's it. Thank you so much, Wayne. Always a blast. Like you said, I'd love to do this again soon. So, right now, go to Amazon Prime, search for Doors of Perception film. It's a movie. Should come right up and give that a watch. Really hope you enjoy it and give us a positive rating and review. We'd really appreciate that. We are expecting it to also be available on Tubi and the other free streaming platforms within a month or two. Also, go watch our first film, Occult Louisiana. That is right now on Tubi. It's on Fossum. It's on Roku channel. It's on a bunch of other free streaming platforms. Again, go check it out and show us some love. We really appreciate it. Like Wayne said, that is the best way for all you guys to really help and support and show some love for what I do. Also, listen to the podcast. This is our bread and butter. This is what we started doing, Forbidden Knowledge News. It's available on all podcast platforms. We put some clips up on YouTube. It's also available on Rumble if you'd like to see the videos. And if you'd like to get our premium content, you go to rockfin.com/FKN plus. That's ROKFIN.com/FKN plus. And the website is forbiddenknowledge.news. And thank you again, Wayne. Had a
Thank
blast.
you, man. I enjoyed it. And all those links are provided below. Chris, we're going to have you back on because, yeah, this,
Yeah.
it's this is rodeo time. It's giddy up and go.
That's it.
All right, brother.
Later.
Appreciate you. Thank you, everyone out in the chat room. Appreciate all of you. And again, it's by community supporting the men and women that are part of this community that's how we grow stronger. So Chris, continue it up, continue to support you as well. Everybody have yourself a fabulous day. I think Nina has her program, her hump day program, so check that out. And I'll be on with Mike and Cindy of Evolution Healing Arts, so looking forward to that. Have yourselves a fabulous day. And Chris, thank you again, brother. Really do appreciate it.